On a cold winter night in 1959, deep in the remote wilderness of Russia's Ural Mountains, began one of the most chilling and mysterious stories in modern history. A true tale that has baffled scientists and investigators for decades. Now known simply as the Dyatlov Pass Incident. The goal was simple: a winter ski expedition across the northern Ural Mountains. The group's leader, Igor Dyatlov, just 23 years old, was an experienced mountaineer and skier. He carefully selected 9 other students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were among the best, and their mission? To complete a 300-kilometer trek and earn the highest certification in skiing, Grade 3. On January 25th, the group boarded a train to a remote town called Ivdel, then took a truck to the last inhabited village, Vizai. There they stocked up on supplies and prepared for the journey. On the morning of January 27th, they set out toward the mysterious mountain of Ottorten, a name that, in the language of the native Mansi people, means, "Don't go there." The next day, one member, Ural, fell ill with severe joint pain and turned back. That decision would be the only reason he survived. On January 31st, the group began their ascent. They stored extra supplies in a cache for their return trip. The next day, February 1st, a blinding snowstorm struck. They lost their way, and instead of heading into the forest for shelter, they pitched their tent on the open slope of a mountain, now known as Dead Mountain. Why camp there? Some believe Dyatlov didn't want to lose the altitude they had gained, or perhaps they were forced by the storm. Then came the night. What happened next, no one knows for sure. But something drove them to flee the tent in a panic. Not just flee, they cut the tent open from the inside with knives. They ran into the snow, barefoot, half-dressed, some in socks. Temperatures dropped to -30 degrees Celsius. Can you imagine the terror that would make someone tear through their own tent and escape into a blizzard, almost naked? What were they running from? Days passed, then weeks, no sign of the group. On February 20th, after desperate pressure from families, search teams were finally sent. Students, teachers, then the Soviet military, joined with helicopters and planes. On February 26th, the tent was found, abandoned, half buried in snow. All their belongings inside, left behind, untouched. Then, the bodies began to appear. Under a large cedar tree, the first 2 bodies were found, Doroshenko and Krivonishenko, nearly naked. They had tried to light a fire. Just meters away, 3 more bodies, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, as if they had been trying to crawl back to the tent, but died on the way. But the real horror came 2 months later. On May 4th, the final 4 bodies were found, buried beneath 4 meters of snow in a nearby ravine. And that's when the real questions began. One had a fractured skull, others had massive chest injuries, like those from a car crash. Most disturbing of all, Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue, her eyes, and part of her face had been torn away. Even stranger, there were no external wounds to explain these massive injuries, as if the damage came from within. The Soviet authorities opened an investigation and quickly closed it. The official cause? A compelling natural force. But people weren't satisfied. Theories exploded. Avalanche? Experts say no.
The slope wasn't avalanche-prone, the tent wasn't swept away, and the bodies weren't scattered. Nonetheless, there are traces of military equipment and telemetry testing. Traces of radiation were found on some of the clothing, and the area was known for secret weapon tests. Infrasound panic? Some suggested the wind caused low-frequency sound waves that triggered mass hysteria. Attack? By who? No footprints, no wild animals, no sign of indigenous people, as if something invisible, unexplainable had killed them. Why did they flee so terrified and exposed? Why was the tent slashed from the inside? Where did those fatal injuries come from? What about the radiation? And where did Ludmila's tongue go? Decades passed. The case was reopened in 2019. But the answer remained the same, a natural force. But was it really? The Dyatlov Pass Incident. A tragedy or a supernatural enigma? Did they die from nature's wrath or from something beyond our understanding? We may never know the truth. Maybe we're not meant to. But one thing is certain. 9 souls climbed that mountain and never came back down.